So welcome everybody. I'm very happy that you've all thought it was worthwhile to come out and hear a talk on meditation. So, of course, I'm not a teacher. I'm a student of Buddhism, and I've had the great fortune of having received many teachings from some of the greatest lamas in this world. The Dalai Lama, our own resident teacher here, Geshe Doga, and many other lamas that have happened to have come and sat in this gompa, sat on that throne and gave incredible teachings on the Buddhist path. So I'd just like to share some of the essence of the things that I've heard over those years. So I'm just very interested. Hands up anybody who hasn't been here before to Tara Institute. And hands up though who thinks they're relatively new to Buddhism. Don't know much about what Buddhism's about. And okay, so most of you are a little bit more familiar. But so what I want to cover over the next 4 weeks are some of the what are the most essential principles that are taught within Buddhism, something that's tangible, something that we can actually include in our life and help improve our life. So that's what I hope to cover. So things like the precious human rebirth. This is a big topic, and it's one of the first topics that's covered if you hear formal teachings about Buddhism. Because unless you realise, when you realise that you have something that's very precious, then you don't want to waste it and you want to seize the opportunity. So this human life is extremely precious, especially if you combine that with a combination that we have been able to come in contact with authentic teachings traced back directly to the Buddha. So that's a big thing. That's a very important thing, the authenticity. So we know we're dealing with something that's authentic and real. And of course, the other thing that I wanted to present after that, over the next weeks, I'm not sure how it'll actually unfold, this life is impermanent and will end. Unfortunately, it's a reality. There's nothing I can do about it. If I live to 80, 3/4 of my life is gone, and there's only a quarter left. That's it. There's no negotiation, and that's the same with all of us. So death and impermanence is an important topic, and it's a sobering topic, but it's also an extremely uplifting topic, which brings us more into the present and, utilising the precious life that we have in the best way that we can. And also I'd like to talk about karma, which is a word that's pretty well in the English dictionary these days. Karma, cause and effect, or you better not do that, that's bad karma. So I'd like to talk about a more formal presentation of what karma is, as presented in the Buddhist teachings. And refuge. Refuge is an extremely important topic. Facing our own mortality, facing the uncertainty of, is there a future life? Is there not a future life? All those things we can explore together. But the whole concept of refuge is very important, because the Buddha is an enlightened being. The Buddha is a teacher that can guide us along our own inner journey. So they're really the main things that I wanted to cover, which is a lot. So before we start, let's just do some formal meditation for 10 minutes. This is something that you can do at home, and you can do it while you're on the train going to work. You can do it, find a quiet time where you can focus your mind on meditation. And if you add discipline into your life, you can do it every day for a short time, or you can do it for 30 minutes, whatever fits in with your life, and you can see whether or not you get benefit out of that or not. So let's start by that. So I'm just going to move this foot a bit. So there's in terms of the formal meditation posture, there's 7 or 8 features that are mentioned about the correct meditation posture, the posture taught by the Buddha. And so if we just go through each one, probably in order of priority, the most important thing is to have a straight back. Because, you know, if we're trying to focus on something and we're like this, we might fall asleep. It's a bit dozy. But if you have a straight back, you know, there's actual science behind it, because within the body there's also psychic channels or energy channels within our body that we hear about, a little bit mystical, but they are described that there is a channel that runs through the centre of our body along parallel with our spine. And by having a straight back ensures that that energy flows smoothly. And I noticed that. You know, when I try and sit with a straight back, I notice I can focus better. Even students can notice that if they're studying, you know, if they have a straight back, I think it aids greater concentration. So a straight back's very important. Legs crossed, I love sitting in the half lotus position. I find it very stable. Thank goodness my knees aren't packing up at this stage. They have in the past and I just couldn't do it, which is fine. You just do the best. You can just sit like that if you can't do that. Most important is straight back. And you don't have to have your legs crossed at all if you can't do that. Sitting in a chair is fine. The next thing is your right hand resting on your left hand and thumbs touching together, and then comfortably resting on your lap and your thumbs pointing towards your navel. So that's really important for that part. And there's a lot of symbolism behind the palms. You know, this hand is meant to represent what's called method, which is like love, compassion, and this hand represents wisdom. So the two of them coming together, method and wisdom, means that, you know, we're unifying both of them. That's what it symbolises. And, you know, the very, very good example is a bird. A bird can't fly with one wing. And if we want to make progress as individual, mentally develop, spiritually develop, it has to have a combination of both love and compassion and wisdom. Otherwise it won't happen. That's what the hands represented together like that. And the shoulders should be relaxed, not one sloping down lower than the other. Have them even, a little bit of a gap between the body. They say it adds to airflow, you know. I mean, some meditators meditate for hours, so these issues might become more relevant in that case, but at least have your shoulders, you know, level. And your teeth and lips just relaxed. You don't want your jaw, you don't want to be tightly, you know, have your jaw tight. And rest your tongue gently against the palate. That also just aids flow of saliva or things like that. The head should be bent slightly forward, not too far forward, not too far back, but slightly forward. And the eyes should be half open, gazing along the nose and loosely focusing at the tip of the nose. They're the 7 features of the meditation posture, and sometimes it talks about the 8, and the 8th is what we're going to do tonight, which is focusing on our breathing. So let's start this now. I'll just talk for a little bit, but then we'll leave it to ourselves to do this. So we're focusing our attention on the breathing, on the breath, as it comes in and out through the nostrils. So it's a natural process. Breathing is natural. So we don't want to add anything to it, just let it happen naturally. We're not breathing heavier or slower. All we're doing is observing the breath. As it comes in, we notice that sensation in the nostrils. As we breathe out, we notice that sensation. And that's the object of our meditation. That's where we want to place our focus. And to help us do that, we're going to count it 21 times individually. Each inhalation and exhalation is 1. So let's do that now. We'll repeat that 21 times. If your mind wanders off, just bring it back to the breath again. Just reminding ourselves to be focused on the breath. Okay, so just bring ourselves back again. So, as I said, we can do this meditation at any time that you can fit in to your daily schedule. And, you know, there are other things that we can do. You know, combined with the breathing in and out, we can visualise that as we're breathing in pure white energy, and it completely fills our body, all our anxieties, all our illness, anything that disturbs us. It completely fills our body with this blissful, enlightened energy. And as we breathe out, we're breathing out black light. All of that anxiety leaves our body. So that can be very helpful as well. We can combine that with the 21 breaths. So what I was hoping everybody might have noticed in doing this meditation is that it's very hard and our mind is distracted and does go racing off thinking about other things that are on our mind. Did anyone notice that? Sorry?
No, mine's pretty good.
Yours is pretty good. Well, that's good. That's good.
I meditate quite a lot, but I'm like spontaneous meditate without realizing I'm meditating.
Yeah. Well,
It travels though. I can travel a long way, but that's good for that.
that's good. That's good.
Bring it back.
Good. And, you know, the Tibetan word for meditation is gom, and gom means to make familiar. So that's what we're doing in meditation. We're making our mind familiar with the object of meditation. And through habituation, through repeated practice, it's just not going to happen without repeated practice. And discipline. It's just not going to happen. Because our mind is wild, out of control, and easily distracted. And I'm talking about, you know, really trying to make significant changes to our way of thinking and the way we feel, and you know, improving the quality of our mind in a real way. It just doesn't happen without significant effort. So we have to do that. So I've made lots of notes, you know, but I did want to say that, you know, our mind is sometimes compared to an elephant, a wild elephant. And, you know, it makes sense when you think of the image of a wild elephant in a village in India that rampages through the village and knocks down the huts and people get killed, you know. An elephant is a powerful animal, and unrestrained or, you know, very disturbed, it's very destructive. Whereas an elephant, if it's, you know, calmed and it's able to be controlled, it's extremely helpful. And you can see the elephants that they use in Thailand and all these places like that. Unfortunately, I don't like the fact that they use the elephants, but the example is a powerful being used in a destructive or a positive way. So that's the mind is like a wild elephant. It's unsubdued. It needs to be trained. We need to train our mind. Buddhism is all about the mind. Buddhism is all about training the mind, about developing our mind to its fullest potential. So there's a number of steps along the way that Buddhism describes. So, you know, like I work in projects at work and all of that. You know, there are milestones that they talk about, reaching a milestone. But, you know, when we talk about Buddhist goals that are all focused on inner development, you know, one of the goals is, well, you know, this life isn't going to be here forever. I am going to die. Unfortunately, I cannot deny that. None of us really want to acknowledge that, really, but it is a reality. So I believe Buddhism certainly teaches that there is a future life, that we have a future life ahead of us. I want to have a good future life, good circumstances, a good human body. Because, of course, I have a pet, I have a dog, Cyril. Cyril spent all day out in the backyard chewing on a bone and loved it. But Cyril is an animal and limited potential. Cute, but limited potential to develop itself spiritually. And anyway, so I'm talking about the milestones. So the milestone is to secure a good future rebirth. That's very important because it's not far away. As I said to you, 20 years away, and I'll be in my future life, potentially. I hope not, but I will. I'm definitely going to be there at some point. We all are. So if I was told that I was going to be evicted from my house in a month's time, and I did nothing to prepare for it, then when a month comes, who knows where I'm going to end up. Whereas knowing that something is coming, you can prepare. And we need to prepare for our next life. We need to secure and ensure our next life is a good one. That's one of the milestones. The other milestone, which I'll just briefly mention, is about achieving liberation, which is called, or nirvana. Nirvana is another word that you hear in the English dictionary. It's very common. You know, there was a band, Nirvana, and you know, everyone knows nirvana means something about peace, achieving a state of peace. And so nirvana is a major goal in Buddhism, and it's where one has completely uprooted all the ignorance and anger and hatred. Buddhism uses the term delusions. Delusions, to me, when I first met with Buddhism, it didn't make much sense, because I always thought delusions were like somebody who's mentally deluded, you know, like in an asylum, delusions. But delusions are used, when they were translated from Tibetan to English, or from Sanskrit to Tibetan, then Tibetan to English, it really means afflictive emotions. So when all of the afflictive emotions have been uprooted, then one attains a permanent state of inner peace, or nirvana. That's another major goal. But the ultimate goal, the ultimate intention that the Buddha... I've gone right off track on my talk, I'm sorry, what I've got in here, right off track. But the ultimate intention that the Buddha presented was to guide all of us to our ultimate spiritual potential, to fully develop the seed to its highest potential, which is the state of enlightenment. And that's the ultimate goal that we can achieve as individuals. And every sentient being, human being, animal, insect, spirit beings, godly beings, hell beings, every sentient being has the potential to achieve enlightenment. And so they call that the Buddha nature. So, yeah. So I went off track a little bit, and I do need to keep an eye on the time, because I would like to have discussion, and I do want to do a meditation at the end as well. But, so I was talking about the wild elephant, our mind being like a wild elephant. And, you know, it's a very good analogy. And I'm quoting from this text, A Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. Wonderful text. Has anybody heard of this text before? Yeah, hand up. Anybody heard of it? It's a wonderful text, good text to buy. Book promotion here. But seriously, this is a wonderful book written in the 7th or 8th century by a great Indian master called Shantideva. And it's just so inspiring. It just outlays in verses over 10 chapters the journey that we can go through in a most beautiful way. How we can develop patience, how we can develop generosity, how we can practice morality, how we can cultivate wisdom. All of the qualities, how do we develop enthusiasm and all of these, concentration, all of these things are all described in here. So from this book, I've just got a couple of verses that Shantideva wrote. So he says, "In this world, unsubdued and crazed elephants are incapable of causing such harms as the miseries of the deepest hell, which can be caused by the unleashed elephant of my mind. However, if the elephant of my mind is firmly bound on all sides by the rope of mindfulness, all fears will cease to exist and all virtues will come into my hand." So I just really I feel that really describes the potential that we have of being self-destructive or self-illuminating. You know, if we were to, you know, create extremely bad negative karma, to kill somebody, to, you know, deceive someone in terrible ways, or do something really bad that's common in society, that we would think, what a heinous thing to do, that can plant seeds in their mind that in their next life they're reborn in a hell realm. Buddhism does talk about hell realms, a bit like Christianity, but they are described very clearly as a consequence of negative actions. Whereas our life as a human being is extremely positive and the result of our having practiced morality, principally morality, in our past life. That's the principal cause of obtaining a human life. So I'll stick to what I'd written down. So anyway, we did our breathing meditation before. We saw how difficult it was. It's hard to keep our mind focused, and we need to practice that. And through practice, there's many examples of great lamas in the past, yogis and yoginis who have practiced meditation with great discipline, and they've been able to obtain high levels of concentration called shamatha, which is like single-pointed concentration. Once they bring the object of their meditation to mind, they can focus on that object single-pointedly for as long as they want, without the slightest distraction. Like a mountain, there's just no distraction. And it's called shine in Tibetan, and shamatha, or single-pointed concentration. I think it's single-pointed concentration in English, but it's interesting. Shamatha is definitely the Sanskrit word. Shine is the Tibetan, but it means, it's not just concentration. It's an achievement of a state of mind of a high level of concentration. Gee, I've forgotten. I don't know why I've forgotten the word, but anyway, so that state is possible, and it's not unique to Buddhism. Shamatha, or single-pointed concentration, is common to non-Buddhists as well. Many Hindu practitioners and yogis and siddhis in India have practiced that and achieved those levels of concentration. Very attractive. You know, imagine if you could focus without any distraction on any topic. You know, you'd be in a worldly life, just simply in a worldly life, you'd be very successful because your mind's so focused. But from a spiritual sort of perspective, it's extremely helpful. But because with that level of focus and concentration, whatever topic you focus on, you can really penetrate into it and really get to it. You can gain realizations, you can gain inner realizations that come from that. But that is not the ultimate goal of Buddhism. As I said, I laid out what those key milestones were: high rebirth, liberation, or enlightenment. So developing that sort of level of concentration is a tool. It's an invaluable tool that we will utilise on our journey, you know, along the way. So I've put here, so what is Buddhism about? What are its goals? So there's a verse that the Buddha said that summarised what is Buddhism all about. And he said, abandon even the slightest negativity, let alone big negativities. thoroughly engage in virtue, and subdue your mind. These are the teachings of the Muni, and the Muni is an epithet for the Buddha. So we can see here that the real emphasis is the mind. That's what it's all about. Subduing the mind, because we express ourselves in this world through our body, our speech. That's all really, through our body and speech. You can see our physical actions, you can hear our words, you can't really see our mind. So, but you can see what our mind might be thinking by the expression on our face or the words that we say. So it's the mind that drives our interaction in the world and how we behave. So if we have an angry mind, then we're most likely going to say something very hurtful to the person that we're angry at and regret later. And if we have a positive mind, a compassionate, loving and caring mind, you know, we can say something very soothing and bring great comfort to somebody. Still the same speech, but it's just a different mind motivating the words that come out and how they're spoken. So the mind is of most importance. And similarly with the body, you know, people like to go hunting animals. You know, I personally don't. And that's out of a thrill, out of attachment. You know, it could be fun. So that action of the body to go and hunt something down and kill it is basically out of a thought of, you know, attachment and looking for one's own enjoyment. Similarly, out of hatred, unfortunately that happens today, you know, everywhere. It has happened for however long. People go out and kill other people. And that's not by accident. That's motivated out of hatred and anger or revenge or whatever it could be. And then, of course, we have ignorance. And there's still the practice even today of people that think it's all right to sacrifice animals for a religious ritual or whatever. So I'm just mentioning that, you know, the motivation behind those actions can be either attachment, hatred or ignorance. Sorry?
Or revenge.
Or revenge. Revenge is definitely an aspect of hatred. So the most important thing that we can do in our life is to take ownership of our actions and subdue our wild elephant of a mind. We need to protect our actions and to ensure that they're not harmful to others as much as possible. And if even better, is to be of much help and benefit to others as possible. So do we have the capability to do this? Yes, we do. We have the potential to be able to make a change. So that was sort of a bit of an introduction there, leading up to the first main topic that I wanted to mention, which is the precious human rebirth. And, you know, there's said to be a jewel called a wish-fulfilling jewel, whether it's mythical or real, I don't know. But you can imagine a jewel that if you possess it, you can have anything that you wish, you know, anything at all in your life, it will come to fruition through the power of this. And I was reading about it today, and in Tibet there's a big statue of the Buddha in the Jokang, which is one of the main temples in Lhasa. And apparently there's a wish-fulfilling jewel in the knee of that Buddha. And this was in this other book that I've been highly recommend, called Liberation in the Palm of the Hand by Pabonka Rinpoche. And this book lays out the whole path from the beginning to the end in detail of the Buddhist path, our current state all the way up to enlightenment and the causes along the way. So he mentions that people go to this statue because it's got a wish-fulfilling jewel in there, and they make all sorts of heartfelt wishes for this life. I wish I had more money, I wish I had this, I wish I had that. Things that are not really relevant from the bigger picture in terms of our spiritual sort of potential. And so he said, he was basically saying that they should be focused on other things, standing before that Buddha, on other goals. But the point that I was trying to make is that a wish-fulfilling jewel, if such a jewel could give you everything that you wanted, then wouldn't that be wonderful? Well, yes, it can. It can give you everything for this life, but what it can't do is protect you beyond this life. Nothing. We don't take anything with us beyond this life. So even though there is an attraction for such a jewel, it's actually of no value when compared to the precious human rebirth. So Lama Zopa Rinpoche, who's one of the teachers, the late Lama Zopa Rinpoche, has taught the West Buddhism for 50 or 60 years. He passed away a couple of years ago. Just there on that far right picture. But he would say, even if you have 100,000 billion wish-fulfilling jewels, it's nothing compared to having a precious human rebirth. Because with this human rebirth, we can actually ensure that we get a better human rebirth in our next life. With this precious human rebirth, we can achieve liberation, which is complete freedom from, I haven't really talked about this, the cycle of birth and death and reincarnation, like a wheel. Since beginningless time, we've been caught in this cycle. So with this precious human rebirth, we can achieve that goal. And with this precious human rebirth, we can achieve the complete state of full enlightenment. So these are goals that can't even be compared, thousands of wish-fulfilling jewels offer no comparison to the benefit of that. How am I going? Does anybody have any questions? Or probably we should open up for questions now if there are any, because I've actually talked a bit more than I really wanted to talk. Any questions? Anything anybody has? Otherwise I'll keep going. I'll save the last 10 minutes for another meditation. Hello.
This is a completely basic question, but you talked about in meditating and harnessing the mind, as if the goal is to concentrate on a particular thing.
Yes.
I'm used to hearing when people talk about meditation about concentrating on nothing, which is really hard as well. It's kind of like the absence of the other thoughts.
Yeah.
So I just would be really interested in, when you're talking about, creating that pure concentration.
Yeah.
Is it supposed to be on a particular thing or thought, or is it really the absence of thought?
Yeah. So, I mean, just in general, there are two types of meditation. There's fixed meditation and analytical meditation. So the one that I'm talking about is the fixed meditation, and you are focusing on an object, and usually the object that is recommended generally to people is an image of the Buddha. It's a virtuous object, and so the idea behind that is to look at the Buddha, become familiar with the posture, the hand, the bowl, the features of the Buddha and then bring it into your mind as a visual object. And what you're focusing on is the visual object in your mind. So when you say focus on nothing, I mean, certainly I think that's all right. I mean, I have heard that you can choose as an object of your meditation the mind itself. I've always found that a very difficult concept to think about. So, I mean, it's different if you try to visualise an object in front of you and you've got this image in your mind. But for that object of your concentration to be the mind itself is quite difficult. And it's actually highly beneficial if you can make that object the object of your focus. So it's your object of meditation is focusing on that part of you that has awareness, which is mind, which is very difficult. But nothing, I don't know what nothing means. Blank your mind out. You could blank your mind out. Yeah, I don't really know.
I think some of the stuff where you get online and stuff, I mean, it's like I think that your life is organised and you're like, you can focus on that little bit of peace in your mind.
Yeah.
And you get to nothing and it's like, when your life's in, or like, you know, it just, that's, when you're at peace in yourself.
Yeah. Well,
when your life is, yeah, when you're in your life.
so you're not holding on to any thoughts at all,
No,
you're just trying to let go.
When there's no suffering, no, you know, all different,
Mm.
this is different.
Mm.
When like, you're, like, so there's so much violence and stuff, and people saying like, if you can get away from that and you're at peace and you're like, and stuff is there, like your own thoughts.
Well, okay, so
You move forward.
I do I also attend some teachings via Zoom from a teacher in Adelaide. And when he leads the meditation, he says best is to have an object of meditation. But you don't have to. If you find it difficult to visualise an object, then that's all right. You don't have to. The next best is to focus on your breath. And if that's not suitable, then you can just try and focus on nothing. That's fine. What we're trying to do is to settle our mind, to calm our mind so we can then focus a bit more when we do whatever we're going to do. So whether focusing on nothing can be a valid object that can lead to this state of single point of concentration, I'm not sure about that one. But
However, would the easiest way to lead to nothing potentially be breathing in the white energy and getting rid of the negative energy?
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
That's the introduction, that's step one.
yes. Yeah, definitely. I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to start just to cleanse and start to feel some inner calm. But then it is described that if we really do want to develop this single point of concentration, which is an invaluable tool, it's in our toolbox of meditation tools, then we need to pick an object of meditation. So, you know, when you read books like this book, it talks about people that have chosen an object of a rock, and that's their object. And they've been able to obtain single point of concentration because they've picked their object as a rock, they've visualised a rock in their mind, and they've focused in on that rock and the obstacles that allow you to focus on that object. There are obstacles, but then if you apply the antidotes to those obstacles, you know, for example, mindfulness and alertness, being aware of what I'm meant to be thinking about, remembering the object, all of these things, then you can still achieve this single point of concentration for any object. But from Buddhism, it's recommended choose a virtuous object like the Buddha's image, you know, much better. Or, you know, this is Chenrezig, the Buddha of compassion, up there. You can choose that. So, any other questions?
I'd like to make a comment. Actually, I'm going to be opening a bookshop, and if you want to get all those good books about meditation that Denis is talking about, as you go by on the outside, please come in. Now keep talking and I'll go after you.
So I really was just I was trying to lead up to the precious human rebirth. So I'll talk more about the precious human rebirth next week, because there's a number of points about it. One is recognising what is a precious human rebirth. The other one is recognising what are the what are the causes? Hang on. Recognising the precious human rebirth, the rarity of the precious human rebirth, and then, I missed a major topic, major heading. There's three parts to that. Recognising the precious human rebirth. I've just got to give you the main three headings. The difficulty of obtaining it. And just examples of it, I think. Anyway, I want to clarify those three. I'll have to touch up on that for next week. Sorry about that. But the first one is recognising the precious human rebirth. And that is typically described as a life that has 8 freedoms and 10 endowments. So having a precious human rebirth is when you have those situations present in your life. And creating the causes to have those 18 is extremely rare. And it's often described that for having that, it's as if we will never have them again. It's just like unbelievable that we've created the causes to have a human body, to have met the Buddhist teachings, to have met the authentic Buddhist teachings, to have a mind of faith that wants to practice, that has all the conditions to allow us to progress. Because, you know, I suppose if you look in the world, how many people are spiritually minded, that want to follow a spiritual path? It's not something that's taken for granted, really. And to have met an authentic path, an authentic teacher in the Buddha, is extremely rare. So today, I'll list what those 18 are, but today I planted some new plants in the garden called hebes. They've got a purple flower. And it just happened that there were 18 of them. So as I was planting them today, I thought, this is just like the 18 freedoms and endowments. And, you know, going to Bunnings to get them, I had to pay for them. So, you know, I had to have some money. And there was only 9 that was available on the shelf. And my wife knew where to find the extras. And we went looking through all the pallets, and she managed to find some more stock that had come that hadn't yet been put out for everybody. So we ended up buying 18 plants. All I'm saying is that there were causes and conditions for those 18 to come together, and they were relatively easy. Whereas for these 18 freedoms and 10 endowments are extremely rare. It's not just about being born as a human being. It's much more than that. So to list those briefly, to get you thinking about it before next week, 4 of them are about being free from non-human states. So, as I mentioned about my dog, you know, if you're born as an animal, you're very limited in your capacity to be able to meditate. You can't meditate. You can't develop yourself. Very little you can do. Chew a bone or fetch the ball. He loves fetching the ball. So we can relate to that, to what an animal is. There's also the freedom from being in other realms that are described in the Buddhist teachings, the hell realms. It goes into great detail in this book, and you can imagine, you have your own visualisation of what a hell realm might be like. I do from my own Christian upbringing and then from what I've learned in the Buddhist teachings, but you know, it's a place of great suffering. In a place of great suffering, how can you focus and how can you meditate? You can't. It's unendurable suffering there. So we're free from that type of life. That's the second one. Then there's another realm of existence that's described, which is called the hungry ghost realm, and or the preta realm. And it's an existence where the beings live for great lengths of time with no food and no water, struggling, day to day struggling to find morsels of food and water. And they suffer for a great period of time. We can't see these realms, but one of the freedoms is not having been born in that realm. The other one is not being born as a long life God. And what that means is, you know, one of the virtuous outcomes is to be born in the upper realms, the human realm, and then there's a deva realm and a godly realm. So in one of those realms, one of those lives, the beings have a long life, an incredibly long life, and they're only in a state of bliss. It starts in a state of bliss, incredible period of time, way beyond human lifespan, thousands of years, I don't know how long it is, but it's a great period of time, and they're just blissed out, nothing else, and then their life's over. They can't do anything in that state. So that's described as, we want freedom from that. There's nothing to be gained in that life. So they're the four freedoms that are not with respect to within the human realm. Then within the human life, we want to be born at a time when the Buddha has descended, at a time when the Buddha's teachings are available, which they are. The Buddha himself is not here now, but his teachings are here, and many of the practitioners, we can see, those who have seen or who know of His Holiness the Dalai Lama and other great teachers who are spreading the Buddha's teachings, are available. That freedom was freedom from when the Buddha has not descended. So we don't want to be born at a time when the Buddha has not descended. So another freedom was being free from being born as a barbarian. And I toyed with that word and thought of Conan the Barbarian. And, you know, but it's somebody who's barbaric and who has no sense of concern or wealth or consideration for others, totally out of control. So we want to be free from being born as such a person. Freedom from being born, the word that's used in the book, it says fool, but it's really, you know, being born and also being born free of defective organs. So there's many hindrances to people that have that are blind or deaf. They're not really hindered at all from their own spiritual pursuits, but there are obstacles there for them. It's harder for them to be able to progress, perhaps. And freedom from being a heretic, somebody who holds wrong views. So those 8 are described as the 8 freedoms. So we find ourselves are free. This human life has those 8 freedoms. Sorry, getting all tongue-tied. And then there's the 10 richnesses or the 10 endowments. I won't even go into those now, but I'll list them all next week. So they're important to know. The whole gist of this is to realise that we have a precious opportunity that's extremely rare, and if we don't take advantage of it, then we've lost something of great value. So that's the important thing. So let's just do a quick meditation for the end. What I wanted to focus on each week is a different aspect of the way to develop altruism, to develop a genuine altruistic intention to be of benefit to others. And that's seen as one of the most important motivations that we should try to cultivate. So before we can even begin to think about that, we need to develop a mind of equanimity. So let's just assume our meditation posture, and this will be an example of an analytical meditation. So if we just bring to mind 3 different people that you know. One is a friend, one is an enemy, which is a harsh word, but somebody you dislike and someone you have difficulty with. And the other is a stranger, somebody who you have no relationship with. Perhaps it's somebody you've seen in a shop or somebody you've walked past. So if we just focus first of all on our friend and think about, why is this person our friend? What is it about the relationship that this person has become our friend? If we examine this very honestly, we'll see that we get something from our friend as well. They give us something that we want. There's attachment involved there. There's a bit of a self-focus. And let's move to our person we have difficulty with. What is it that they have done that we dislike them? What have we not got? Have they taken something away from us? So again, it's self-focused. This person has done something that I don't like. The friend has done something that I like. The stranger has done neither. So there's an indifference. I don't get something from them, and they don't take something away from me. So this is a very We want to get away from having this discriminating mind that sees people as friends, enemies or strangers based on whether they give me what I want or they don't give me what I want. It's self-centered. And we need to develop a mind of equanimity that recognises that we are all exactly the same in our wish for happiness and our wish to be free from any difficulties and problems. And if we can expand this to include all the people we know, all the people we don't know, we're all exactly the same in this regard. So we can develop a more even view. It doesn't mean we lose our friends. We just recognise the fault in our self-cherishing thoughts. And with a mind of equanimity, then we can truly begin to start to work on developing unbiased love, unconditional compassion towards others. All right, well thank you everybody, and I hope you have a nice week ahead, and please stay for a cup of tea if you'd like to have a cup of tea up at the front, and enjoy the public holiday tomorrow, and I'll look forward to talking more about it. I have to do some better revision of those 3 points of the British Human Rebirth. I should know them. Thank you. Good night.